Good evening, everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the BBC, the Bordweall Broadcasting Company. Tonight, we are going to be talking with Ren as our guest tonight. How are you?
I am here and alive, and it's very cold.
Looks like it, yeah, kind of like the old woman mittens on, the fingerless mittens on that the bag ladies in England wear, kind of thing.
Oh
There
my
you
God,
go. Oh,
call
it's
me
actually
bag lady.
it's part of your sweatshirt. All right.
Yeah.
That's a bit more stylish. All right. A
Oh God.
stripper name. There you go.
Good
So
start.
we have, for the first time as our producer tonight, we have Alex in the background. Noslim is busy tonight and he is working away on something else. So Alex has stepped in and we hope that it goes relatively hassle-free. If there's a little glitch here or there, just be patient. We hope to be back online shortly, but I don't anticipate there being any issues. Alex is very, very competent. So we are tonight kind of like I wanted to go over a little bit the analysis of a county. We've had some since domain and settlement selection, a lot of the community has gone into hibernation. It's very telling in the forum posts. You can look at the recent posts and sometimes they go back and at one point it was actually for 3 days, whereas usually those recent posts, they kind of like, during domain and settlement selection, they were kind of like, boom, freaking 30 minutes and your post was no longer on the recent post thread. So what I wanted to do was kind of like show some stuff and discuss a little bit of stuff about the domain and settlement selection map in a slightly different way. I don't want to go over, what professions are here or there, but kind of like more look at the sizes and the parcels and actually have a depiction of how those parcels for all of the settlements in a county come to mind. So Alex, if you'd like to put up image number 1, this first image that's coming up, it'll show you kind of like the little area that I'm going to be explaining. That's it there. It shows Blood Branch, Pridwin's Rest and Firefield Steadings, which are kind of like what the Royal County is, although I will add the disclaimer that Pridwin's Rest, which was purchased by another count who was part of the Royal County, might actually, for very good and very amiable reasons, remain independent. And so it might be that come game launch, the actual Royal County's Blood Branch with Firefield Steadings, which somebody has said, wow, you chose a name for Firefield Steadings that is FFS for fuck's sake. And yes,
Ooh.
that was intentional. It's kind of like it's just taking a little bit of the piss out of the naming convention. However, since Firefield Steadings will be folded into Blood Branch at game launch, it's kind of like it's just my little jab, for want of a better way of phrasing that. And so those are the counties that we'll kind of like be showing in total tonight. Alex, if we can go to image number 2. So what image number 2 does is, if you guys have Photoshop in particular, I do a lot of my work here in Photoshop, you can set up your grid. If you copy over the map, and you have to do it kind of like by capturing the screenshots, or at least that's how I did it, and then copy pasting them in, is you can set the grid up for every 16 pixels. And so that grid, which you see there of those green lines, those show each one of those basically represents a parcel, because it's 64 meters by 64 meters, because 1 pixel at this zoom level is 4 meters. And you can see that naturally, particularly in the bottom part, like in the bottom left third, you can see where the county line starts to kind of like zigzag and step. You can see how the parcels are lined up. Each one of those steps is basically the height and width of a parcel of land. And, naturally the county lines, although it would be great for them to be nice and flowing and organic like in real life, they can't be for the purpose of this game. They have to kind of like be in these zigzag steps, because you're not going to be able to split parcels, between counties for ownership and jurisdiction, etc. on that. So, to me that made complete sense. Do you have any comments so far, Ren?
The only comment I have is looking at this picture, you can see, I think it's on the left side. Some of the water kind of has the grids on it, and I thought that was really interesting. I wonder if that was the algorithm or if there's actually a weird river like that. It's like right below the city on the left side.
Yes, we'll get into those in a little while, actually. So, sometimes it can be difficult to tell. If you look at this image, the one that's up currently at the moment, and you look at in that mountain area at the hamlet, it seems to straddle both sides of the water, and it can be a little bit tough to try and figure out, wow, which side of the river is that hamlet on? And so our conclusion is, and if you put up image number 3, please, Alex, our conclusion is, and it could be mistaken, but currently our thinking is that the very center of the circle is the center of the town, and not the flat base as some of us have speculated. Some people thought, oh, it's where the base is, it's where that circle is being cut off, and that's where the town starts. For me, now I'm thinking very clearly, it's boom right there in the middle. Those kind of like those faint little squares that you see are actually the edges of the pixels in there. And if you look at that, it's because if you look at the image that's up at the very where you see the icon of the settlement, in the bottom left side, kind of like stepping out of the frame, you can actually see the post of a bridge sticking out. And and you can see the bridge behind it.
Oh,
And
you're
so
right.
it leads us to think that that there's a bridge over there, and that the settlement is actually on the other side. And so with that, again, all of you can do this if you want to for your own settlements now. You can get GIMP. If you don't have Photoshop or subscribe to Photoshop, you can get GIMP, which is basically like an open source freeware. I wouldn't say it's a version of Photoshop, but it pretty much does what Photoshop does. I've never used it myself. People say it's really good, but not quite as intuitive. But you can do these things for yourselves, very, very easily.
Definitely
So
smarter than paint.
yes. So if we can put up image number 4, please. This is actually on the map, on the domain and settlement selection map. It's actually, and Ren, what I'll ask is you chime in and interrupt me as I go through these, if there's anything. Anytime you have a comment to make on something, just interrupt and I'll try to shut up.
This is from where is this from?
This is from the Royal County of Blood Branch.
This is your map that you did, correct?
This is actually from part of the map that I did. Yes, absolutely. And so you can see here that if you look at the domain and settlement selection map, this particular settlement, which is now called, I think it's Ember Citadel on the map. It got changed in the name. It has a maximum of 9 parcels. So we were trying to figure out, how do we figure out which 9 parcels, before game actually launches, which 9 parcels belong to this hamlet? And really, there is no way of knowing. I don't know what the criteria that were programmed into algorithm are. And so I'd speculate that all of the first 3 original parcels, because a hamlet has to start off with 3 parcels, they all have to touch that kind of like that center, that red dot in there. So if we can go to image number 5, please, Alex. What that would do as this comes up, thank you, is that shows you the initial 3 hamlets. And, so the only way that I could figure this out as to which are the next parcels that might belong to this particular hamlet would be to kind of like use almost like the similar criteria that they were using for when we were able to pick multiple counties, like you might have had 6 counties. And that's like, you can place the first one wherever you want. In this case, the algorithm places it and it has to be touching. And then the other ones need to be touching and those need to get filled up as first. And so if we go on to image 6, that naturally makes the next parcel will obviously go in and fill out the square.
So what you're saying is I can't have like a 1 by 14 city.
I don't believe so. I think you might be able to create it once game launches, right? And you're purchasing the land from the county or from the count. But I don't think we're going to get the option from algorithm as to how our settlements are procedurally generated. And so, from here, I can do little more than guess once these first 4 are in place. I can do little more than guess as to where the following 5 parcels are going to go. Does algorithm prioritize parcels with just land, or land and some water is more valuable than ones with land? Or, so here's kind of like, if we go to image 7, this is what would happen is if it was prioritizing land, it would kind of like backfill behind it. But if it goes the way that I think it's going to go, and that's kind of like it's going to almost like radially expand out from the center dot, we can go to image 8 there, Alex. And that's how I would presume, or at least speculate, that your nine parcels might look in that particular situation. Now, it almost looks like a pinwheel, except on the left side there are 2 parcels together. And obviously, algorithm might have that rotated around in some manner. But that's kind of like how I'm speculating it would be going. And I think that's going to pretty much be the case for every settlement out there, except for, and if you can put up image 9, please, Alex, except for settlements that are actually on the border. Because on the border, you obviously won't have parcels in your town that are in the next county over. So this particular image is one of a village called Green Bear Creek, which is at the very bottom of our royal county, and you can see that icon actually clearly intercedes into a neighboring county with 3 parcels, and that's not going to be happening in real life, at least not in my opinion when the game starts. I think it'll be more like this. If you can put up image 10, please, Alex. And Green Bear Creek is a village that has 21 parcels. And that's kind of like how I would envision or speculate those 21 parcels for Green Bear Creek kind of like moving out, etc.
It makes me wonder if how it's going to like actually, there's too much water in a parcel for it to want to take. Because if it doesn't have that, it could theoretically just decide a city needs to be 1 parcel on land and the rest in the ocean.
Well, I think it starts, I would definitely imagine that algorithm starts off with that dot, that epicenter has to be on land. And then, my personal thoughts are is after that, it doesn't give a fuck,
Yeah, but what if you have rivers that are like 3 parcels wide? Because those do exist in the county. You have those 3 parcel wide, but it's maybe in the middle of a city. What's the one above a city? A capital? You maybe have a capital that straddles that. Does it just only stay on one side of the river?
I do, and actually I'll be showing that in this next image. If you'd like to put up image number 11, please.
Question
I don't know if you're right. Yeah, and that is, if you look at that, I don't know if you're able to zoom in on the large part there, Alex. I don't know if you've got this set up in a way where you can zoom in, but if you look at Bloodroot there, um, it's, as it expands, you actually see that a lot of those parcels are ending up in the river, and I think that's how it's going to work. I hope I'm mistaken. There you go. Perfect. Thank you.
But like,
You could,
to
sorry, go
me,
ahead, Ren.
it says that a city of that size needs a bunch of things. And they need that size because it has to fit all of those things into the city. So that makes me think you have blacksmiths and a river, which I think when they load that up and render it all in and they see it, they go, we might need to recalculate this.
It's very possible. It's also, remember that this city was not this size when algorithm chose where to place it. This city has become this size because of my double duchy, which added another 50 parcels or whatever to the thing. And Tal, is there somebody in Bordwall who does this dividing counties by parcels thing? Yes, that is me, sir. I actually I do maps as commissions. I can probably touch on that maybe a little bit towards the end of the show, because there'll be a couple of things that I'll show. But what you see here is actually, all that artwork. Now, this is this is the artwork that kind of like that I've put together for our for our fantasy map of our county. I'll give you guys a link to it at the end.
It certainly
Let's
makes me wonder if
see.
you're going to end up with like Venice. And there's going to be like
It's
flooding or something like that.
Well, they said there might be tides, but then Snipe said that you didn't really see how tides really add or detract to the game. And since they don't have water mechanics, as in the flow of water, they could probably get the water level itself to raise 6 meters and go down 6 meters, etc. But that the water would not be flowing per se. Rivers,
Yeah.
they said they can uh, simulate a river flowing downstream to where you'll be able to, kind of like Lord of the Rings, you'll be able to, throw a barrel in the water and it'll float downstream, but it won't float back upstream, kind of thing.
Yeah, but probably not the way we're thinking, like to the water consumption on like the Colorado River, where if you consume all the water, then if there's no more water when it reaches Mexico. Not probably like where
Yeah.
I would think not. Now I'm really just thinking your city is going to be made of barges.
Yeah, very, very possible. In fact, if you look at that, in fact, we'll have a couple of images coming up here shortly. But if you zoom out, Alex, now to where we can see again the whole of that. Remember that this is kind of like 4 combined counties here, but you get to kind of like get an impression of the red, which is the built up and urbanized land at the beginning of the game, and how much free land, although obviously it belongs to the count, but how much free land is available, and will that land be used to build other hamlets? These are decisions that are going to have to be made. If you build another hamlet, is it going to pull NPCs from a neighboring settlement? And did that mayor want to have NPCs pulled from his settlement? Or did the new hamlet just fuck with that guy's economy? So these are all things that are going to have to all be taken into consideration. I don't know if you have any thoughts or comments in regards to that, Ren.
Well, I think with at least like the red versus green on this, one of the things that they talk about is sustainability, and like one of those like calculations I did way back in time was the food, how much it takes to support a person, and it takes like a, an acre of land to produce enough food for a year for a person. And like if you took that calculation and you kind of did that out for populations of counties and stuff like that, you need a lot of that land to stay green or your populations are going to starve, or you're just going to have starving populations anywhere. But that calculation might not be right, because they've talked about how farms, like one farm is a fourth of a parcel, can support so many people, which I don't remember what that was.
I
makes
think it was
me
16.
yeah,
A
it
parcel
was
can
a
support
lot
16 people or something.
more than what
Yeah,
is real world, which I mean makes sense because maybe you don't want to farm 200 parcels to support the 200 people who live in a city. And that might be a lot for your one farmer, three farmers or whatever, but I think
yeah,
that's something to consider is your sustainability with that.
yeah, yeah, definitely. But again, I think that the devs have shown, kind of like disappointingly to me, that there will be ways to get around that. Like, they've even
Greenhouses.
mentioned that you can put the greenhouses or hothouses up in the tundra and
Can we
grow
put them in
stuff.
the water?
And
Because we
it's
have so many lakes and ponds and rivers.
aquaculture,
Put them in the water.
exactly. So yeah, so we'll see how that works.
Just
Does
rafts of
anybody have any questions regarding settlement sizes or anything that I've shown so far?
yeah, it to me it doesn't seem right that those cities would include water. Like it doesn't because the algorithm could theoretically put a city on a coast and put half of it in the ocean and then the city gets half by half and the world
Yeah,
starts and 100 people drowned.
yeah, yeah. It's almost like you'd be having land stolen from you, right? So maybe algorithm will be programmed to uh, only include parcels that might have at least a little bit of land or 10% land or whatever in them, etc.
I mean, I would hope
That's
so.
that's a possibility.
Yeah,
Uh,
the water parcels just seem very scary.
so Lemon Squid asked a question of what's my opinion of the viability of small hamlets, villages within proximity of capitals. I think they'll be very viable. In fact, I don't only think that they'll be viable, but I think they'll be essential. Um, you know, it depends upon how much of that land you want to use towards farming, or do you want a hamlet? You can see that there's the capital. Each one of those squares is 64 meters. So if you go from Blood Oak and you look to the left there, and you go along that road, it's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I mean, 6 squares away. That's going to be 6 times 36, 300, 500 meters. So not even half a kilometer, which is what you can do. That's about 6 minutes, 7 minutes walk. It's not that far away. So it should be very, very viable. Um, Iron Root, I'm actually going to show you a little thing about Iron Root here in a little bit. It's about another 2, 3 images further down. Is everybody good on the size of settlements and kind of like seeing? Does anybody want it zoomed out again so that they can get a better idea of kind of like the stuff? And also, if you were to look there at Bloodroot, no, we got all your
Alex, we are looking at your board.
Alex. You're showing us your goat porn pics at the moment. There we go. So even if you look at that river there by Bloodroot, you can look at that's about three parcels, 2 to 3 parcels wide. So that's a river that's 120 yards wide. And I
Not
say
one you're
it's a
gonna
river.
wade across.
Yeah, I tend to call it a waterway because it actually doesn't go anywhere. It
That's
kind of
just a
like it's
weird
this.
like
It has these fingers that look like rivers, but then they stop. They stop there at Dark Spring. So I'm not.
is that the I actually thought it flowed the other way. Like I thought it flowed south, not north.
Well, generally speaking, with the exception of perhaps river deltas, there are only literally a handful of cases. Although I guess this is fantasy land, there are only a handful of cases where a river flowing downstream splits into two. In fact, there's one I think somewhere up in the northern part of America where it does that. But
Oh, I understand
uh,
geography.
yeah,
Also, I don't know why I thought they flowed into the mountains, because I looked at that now and it's like, it definitely flows from the lowlands into the mountains. That's how that river works in my
No, normally it flows from the mountains to the lowlands, but you know, I'm not going to argue about gravity here. Again, it's Illyria. There there might be something
That's
else going
relative,
on.
right?
Yep, it's all relative, and might be something I'm not aware of. So, somebody had mentioned about roads, and roads. If we can go to image 12, please, Alex. Roads are the one of the things that I get asked about the most frequently currently. It's roads. And D, where are we going to put roads? D, you need to figure out how to put a network of roads in right now. We need to figure out where our trade roads are going, what's happening, what's going where. And again, roads and transportation, the ability to move goods and troops swiftly around our domains is going to be of primary and of critical importance. I cannot stress that enough. Um, However, you know, again, I I don't understand or can't understand what's going through algorithm's mind here. If we look at that road that goes between, if you look at the red circle on that image, and you look at the northern settlement within that circle and the southern the southern settlement, the road kind of like it goes south, then west, south, west, south, then west, then south, then west, then south, and it squiggles in it, and it travels along these, to me, frustratingly north, south, and east, west axes.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's because there's a reason for that. That there's because to me, if we can go to image 13, please, Alex. To me, the simple way to build this road would be to very, very simply, boom, along the white dotted line. You know, it's less expensive. It's faster to walk along. I mean, there are no other settlements in those hills that trade route is going through. In fact, it would be a perfect place for bandits to make a living, as it goes in between those two kind of like rows of hills there. Um, but so, the only thing that I can say pretty much regarding roads at this moment in time is that, you know, the uh, I can at best I can't do anything more than speculate until we get into game and actually carry out some kind of a survey, an assessment of the actual terrain and what's going on. You know, I can't do more than speculate whether we're going to change a road, add to it, add more roads, improve the current ones, or abandon various sections of road and kind of like make shortcuts like I've shown on that image here because it makes more sense to.
Yeah, I mean, to me, at least the one benefit that we have with these roads compared to a lot of other is we live in the grasslands. So going across grasslands is a lot easier than going across, say, desert or mountains, where if we don't have a road, it's not the worst thing in the world. We can probably see one city from the other.
Yeah, we pretty much can. And to be quite honest, I'm thrilled that there are going to be roads at the start, even if they're kind of like algorithm roads, kind of thing, for want of
God,
of
these roads,
calling
they
it a
make
better
me so
word.
confused.
Yeah,
So
it's
confused by them.
but but at least they're there rather
They're,
than we have to get a chain gang out there with 50
well,
people, kind of like building 20 yards of road a day for the next 4 months.
I mean, I did calculations and some of the costs of like logical roads between one city and another, and like they're so expensive for the EP cost. And it's like, if they don't offer a substantial benefit compared to just riding off road and having it develop naturally via like game paths, it might just be easier to just hands off it and go, whatever, we won't use these roads because they don't help.
Yeah, I do think that they mentioned that there was going to be, and I'm now the figures that you're going to hear are completely mine. They're not from SBS. But it was like if you've got your standard speed for let's say walking across flat grassland is X, right?
Yeah.
that if you go on a trail, that the trail will add 10% to your movement speed. And if you go along a developed road, it'll add 20% to your movement speed. And if you go along a trade route, it'll add 30% to your movement speed.
Yeah, that would make sense mechanically.
To me, something like that. And it might be 20, 40, 60. Again,
But
the
if
numbers
our
I'm
if
just
our
pulling out.
roads are so inefficient, like they're 3 times as long that if you were to go straight, that doesn't matter how much faster you travel on the road if it's just faster to go across a straight.
100% agreed. And that's, we'll have to look at kind of like, improving the efficiency.
We'll just refer to them as like
etc.
the antique roads. We didn't know what they were for. We just kind of had them.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Alex, but even antique roads, the Romans were able to build awesome antique roads. In fact,
They
some
built
of them are
really good
standing
straight
2,000 years.
roads.
Huh?
But they built roads like that were logical.
Yes, yeah, abandon all logic. You're right. Um, yeah, and
Antique
Fenry's,
roadshow.
yes, and Fenry's saying, so then the same thing for me comes about bridges. If you look at this is still kind of like, it's still named under the old one of Hathurst here. This was an early image that we had. But if you look at that, especially the part in the circle, and I'll be showing a little bit more of this, little bit more in detail of just below the circle, those kind of like, I call them the fingers, those pieces of land that stick out in between the rivers. In fact, if you look at the bottom right hand side, it looks like the thumb. And then like, there's 3-4 fingers sticking up in there. But for me, that bridge just doesn't make sense as to where it's going. I mean, it kind of like, you look at that settlement and that road seems to take a very kind of like circuitous route, over the hills and
Yeah,
dales and
it's
everything,
so
just to get back to that hamlet of Ironroot that we looked at in detail earlier.
it was probably
So
like 5-6 parcels east before it
yes,
comes 5-6 parcels back west. It's not like the
exactly.
river gets much narrower there.
And so to me, if we can go to image 15, Alex.
No, we can't.
There we
There we
go.
go.
So to me, it would make more sense just to put the bridge, boom, straight across there at that narrow point. Have the little path going across the bottom part of that tip of land, and then another little small bridge, and then it connects up, and you could probably actually
It's assuming it's on that side of the river.
yeah, well, it's actually, I think it's on the north side of the river, so you could have the path go down kind of like the south side of that.
Yeah, it's
I mean, it could be Izmir, and that's why I say a lot of this is just speculative, right? And so, that's why I said we have to wait till we can get in game, and that we can, do a survey and assess the situation, correctly. But when I'm looking at how they've made it probably 2 to 3 times longer than it should be, and they have it going up and over and around a whole bunch of hills,
it's
which
almost like they took the straightest path and then they took a multiplier that said add this level of variance into it and said, this is the straightest path, but it could be anywhere from like 100% efficient to like 25% efficient. And then they took that and then it just added extra to the roads.
yeah, exactly. And so somebody was talking about making it like Venice and everything like that. I did do, and I'll post the link for it here in just a moment there in the Twitch chat. But part of kind of like that show us your domain thing, I did if you can put image 16 up, please, Alex. I did kind of like a speculative thing of kind of like how those fingers might look if I was to develop them, and you've got the parcels are in there, and you can see kind of like That's how I would put the bridges in. You know, the dark gray areas there are kind of like where the mountains are. And, you know, on the actual map, you can actually see all the little notes and everything like that as to what's what, etc. But that's how I would see it. That's how I would see kind of like, you know, putting in the bridge system and having the choke points and the different quarters of the town, etc., etc. And, you know, in some of those sections of town, you know, I think section number 10, for example, down there in the bottom right is arable land and pasture used to feed the city. And that's, you know, to feed it during regular times. And it's kind of like walled in and enclosed so that, you know, in times of siege, you know, hopefully it's defendable and everything like that. Let me just try.
You know, looking at this, your dark areas, those are really small like mountains. Like they really are.
Those are mountains on the map.
I know, but that's not like the size that when you think mountain, it's not the
Well,
size you think.
it's not the size you would think because those mountains are meant to have huge elevation. Going by their image, they're the tallest mountains in the game. Going by the footprint, those things have got to be like almost like spires or spikes.
Oh God, that's
Almost
horrifying.
like going. It's actually brilliant. You know, you can hollow them out and build. You know, yeah, you can build chambers in there for housing. You know, food and supplies for when the longest night comes, etc. You know, and have it very, very defensible. You know, it's kind of like where the citadel to protect the city would be.
So you're telling me they're going to be dwarves?
I'm telling you that what? Sorry?
They're going to be dwarves. There's a joke.
We are, yeah. I was sorry, I had something else going off in my ear from my computer for a moment and it was going nuts, kind of thing. But yeah,
he has different skyscrapers because he has very tall mountains.
So yeah, so I've just posted a link in there. That actually is the full image of the entire map that I made for that show us your domain thing. So in fact, I don't know if you can actually bring that up or not, Alex, just from the link thing.
Going on script.
Yeah,
we're going on his first go around.
Yeah, we've already done all 16 images is why. But you know, I can superimpose the parcels on there. You know, I can make. In fact, I've already made 2 or 3 maps for our accounts in this kind of style, and you know, it's on a relatively inexpensive commission. So if somebody had interest on that, you know, I can put in the parcels, I can put in information about your settlements, etc., etc. So, you know, we can, if anybody's interested in that, just give me a shout. Message me on the Discord is the best way to do that. That gives you a good idea of what they look like, kind of like at 100%, you know, regular size there.
Really wish the like little grassland thingies didn't show on the original map because it makes it very hard to see stuff. Like on here, it looks good, it's readable, but for people who are blind and can't really see details, and see there you have your mountain going on in there.
There are the mountains going on there, exactly.
It was very eloquent on my part there. Yes.
Not any worry at all.
Dee's gonna put everybody into a mountain.
Yeah. You'll all be living in mountains. That's it, you know. So
did you hand draw that, or like how did you get that right there with the rivers and the fingers? Because that's
this part is actually from, and Izmir can give you the name of the artist. This part was lifted from an image that. Oh my God! I mean, I'm a fantasy map kind of like nut, so to speak, and always have been. You know, ever since I started playing MMOs, I've been, and even before that, when it was just text. You know, before computers had graphics, and you would just get the text of you are in a room. There is an exit to the east and one to the west. What do you want to do? And I would kind of like draw and map out kind of like, you know, the the dungeon kind of thing. Mike Schley, there you go.
Nerd.
That's his map of Dijon. So, or Dion, I'm not quite sure how you pronounce it. If you scroll down a little bit further on that, Alex, on that image, stay at that zoom. Those two, yeah, that's it. Keep going down. Those two towers on the left are also from Mike Schley from that same image. I separated the image out a little bit just to do that. And then the bottom image, the one that we've been looking at with all the bridges in Venice, that's one that I put together. If you move to the left now.
I just put a song in my head. Thank you.
If you can scroll to the left, Alex, there you go. All right, so in here, it's like, this is a mixture of kind of like images that I purchased from a cartography website. And you can kind of like, I purchased, the mountains and the hills and everything like that. The grass bits I made together. If you go a little bit more to the left and show more of those savanna trees. The savanna trees I created from scratch. I made, I think it was about a total of 30 different trees. And then by kind of like, putting other trees on top of them and everything like that, it almost makes it look like each tree is unique and everything.
It is.
And obviously, the rivers are hand drawn, the roads and everything, all of that's kind of like hand drawn and done. And I made the
see, when you obsess over trees, you draw 30 of them. When I obsess over trees, I count them. Yours is a much more productive means.
Excellent. I made I didn't make the little compass things in the corners of the frame there, but I did make the scale bars and everything like that go along with it. So it's kind of like, it's like a hybrid. I don't consider myself to be a graphic artist per se.
Are you sure, D? Because
I call myself it's more like I'm an image manipulator. I can make things look good.
Oh my god! Now this is it's really cool to think about like the growth of cities. It's kind of freaky to think that the capital could be floating on barges, or in a mountain. You might just abandon the barge city and move into the mountain.
Yeah, exactly.
Please don't dig too deep. Find too much gold, you might get a dragon in your mountain. Just saying. He's gone quiet on me.
It has. I am definitely still here though. So
okay, good. Oh, good. I was worried that you were like, no, that dragon comment too much. All right.
No, nothing like that at all. Sorry, I was just having a flood of notifications coming in. Yeah, I've gotten some private messages about that. For those of you interested in the map, I'll message with you afterwards regarding that. Are there any other questions? Because we're kind of like we're at our 45-minute mark. Any comments, Ren or Alex, that you might want to add to what we've gone over here? Anything anybody else wants to add on that?
Ooh, somebody just mentioned Dwarf Fortress. Now I want to play. Thanks. Is there a check?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm good. I got all my sass out today, so.
Got all your sass out? Has anybody got any sass to throw at us here in the? Oh, you didn't really. That wasn't even really a glitch, and there wasn't anything
Round of
compromising
applause
on
for
that.
Alex.
Yeah. All right. So I think we are good, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Alex for on short notice producing pretty much flawlessly this edition of the BBC. Thank you to Ren for being our guest.
Just here.
And we'll look forward to seeing you guys in 2 weeks' time.
Bye.
Take care, everybody.